All right, so good evening, Anita. We're going to start with today's class. I was fixing some details. I hope everything is going to work great now. Today we're having, all right, the last class. It means we're going to try to see all the details that are possible, at least in the, of course, in the time that we got, to be sure that everything related to the platform is clear and the time that you have left, that is until Sunday, plus the details that we covered, and at least these lessons that we got related to, the body paragraph, to the conclusion, and the one we're going to see today, two that are actually part of just one, that are tips for writing, that are for you to apply later on. I'm not going to be able to check that, but at least you're going to have that information for you. All right. So again, before starting, I don't know if you have any questions. I believe that you have worked on this, but let me know if we're going to check this or if you have any questions before that. Let me know, please.
Hi, Rosalie. No, I don't have questions. Yeah.
All right, good. So let's begin then with this, Tanita. Let's read what you got. Your topic sentence, the real source. All right, here we have four elements, but here we have perhaps more than just one step. Right here, perhaps you have the first step and the second step that is optional. Here you have the introduction plus the evidence. Right, perhaps we can be more precise in this specific case. Then we need to paraphrase that idea, right? But again, let's see. Let's replace Danitza, and I'm going to be analyzing as you read.
Firstly, the benefit of sharing academic knowledge with television have a huge impact on our society because it provides an opportunity to reach a huge segment and keep them up to date with subjects that are important or relevant to our context. According to Julia Stoll, the US television market seems to have entered a time of transition rather than a decline. New streaming platforms have made shows more accessible to many customers, and this change brings with it new opportunities and new audiences. Sorry. They want to consume new content and stay tuned in. As a result, professors have been appearing as guests on television programs to meet the needs of new audiences who are mainly interested in topics related to science and health.
Thank you very much, Denise. Now, if we try to organize this, then in the steps that we have to follow, let's remember that we have a total of 6 steps. One of them is optional, right? But we have a total of 6 steps. What can you say is the first step in your case? I mean, of course, you have the topic sentence over there, and I believe that's only one idea. But let's analyze if that justification is going to go over there or perhaps afterwards, all right? And I mean specifically after you show the evidence to develop, all right, a specific paraphrasing of that thing that you're showing. And in that case, you can justify, right, the benefits. Because if you're saying your topic sentence and you can take that into account, right, the benefits of sharing academic knowledge, right, through television have a huge impact on our society because it provides, and here we're talking about just sharing, right, an opportunity to reach a huge segment and keep them up to date with subjects that are important or relevant, all right, to our context. Now, again, that is good, but my recommendation, at least to follow the structure that we got, and you can save some of that information for afterwards, is that the topic sentence should only be an introduction without necessarily the justification of that specific choice that you got. All right. So it should be only the introduction to say, hey, here we are going to talk about the benefits, right, of sharing information in public interviews, right? Why? The justification of that can come not only for the second part, but after the material that you show, the citation, because after that you have the chance to paraphrase why this is important and how it helps to your point, right? So this information, in the way that you believe that you can change Anissa, can be over here. All right, because again, this should be the introduction like this. Right here, you have two steps. One step has to be the hi, this is the expert, and the other step is this is what the expert says, right? And here you have a combination. I believe you have one part of what you're going to be saying or something like that, and here the other part. All right, but I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I'm going to repeat briefly one more time. The first step is going to be the hi, right? Hey, this is my topic. The second step, optional, is going to be in case it's not clear for you, we don't justify it. We only say, I mean this and that, if it's not clear, right? But I believe that this is clear, so you don't need a second step if you believe the same, all right? Then you say, and this is one expert, right? And I'm presenting you, right? I'm introducing you to this expert. Then you say these are his or her words, right? And then you give me your speech, right? So, in other words, she says that, and I believe that's important because of this and this. So, in this part, after the citation is where we are going to use this justification plus other elements as you are paraphrasing this idea. And you are going to wrap it up in the last element that is going to be the conclusion of your thesis statement, right? Because if you analyze how it helps to prove your point and why it was important to mention all this information, goes right hand to hand. So again, they are going to work together. You're going to have, of course, this transitional word that is going to be in the middle, but it is going to be important over there. All right. So here, let's try to do that, please. Again, there is not going to be a chance to work this later on. Let's try to spend, we still have a lot of time. Yes, of course. So we're going to have please 5 minutes or less, but please, we're going to try to focus as this is going to be the last or right course or the last class. Let's try to organize the ideas in the way I told you. All right. Again, as you are copying and doing that detail, I'm going to remind you one more time. It's only the introduction of the topic without the justification, the clarification in case that topic that I'm talking about is not clear for everybody. Then this is the expert, right? You're introducing the expert and you can give a context. For example, you're saying Julia stole, but give me a more information as part of this step because step number 3 is the introduction of your evidence. In other words, you have to introduce your expert. What's all right that person expert in? What's the institute, the university, or I don't know, right? Any place or establishment to which she is related or he is related. All right, so a little bit more information. If you don't have it, you can make it up now. All right, then again, the exact words. Then you give the paraphrasing, the illustration, the justification, your words that is going to be connected with the last part. All right, with that again repetition, we're going to start counting the 5 minutes, and at 9:26, we're going to check how you were able to do it. All right, let's do it, please. Anita, in the meantime, I'm going to leave you also with the template that you can still follow.
Absolutely. I
Good.
didn't get it the first part. So
Yeah, one more time, Anita.
I didn't I don't understand the this part. Um in my first on the topic sentence you said something like I just need just the first sentence, right? And the other half I could use it to explain the I can use it as my fourth step. You said something like that.
Yes, to justify why you are choosing that topic, it should be accommodated in a certain way, or it can be moved to a different part. And one suggestion was these last two elements that you got over here. Why? Again, because that justification over there, it is not going to be necessary, and it can be applied in a different way. Remember that, again, and to respond directly to what you're saying, yes, the first step, but it's not going to be enough. You can restate this in a different way, right? Because you say the benefits of sharing academic knowledge with revision have, all right, a huge impact in our society. It is good, yes. You can also make it as if you were presenting this topic. So you can restate that again in your own words. It's up to you, Vanessa, but you can start something as you did with your thesis statement, right? So, firstly, it is important to learn about the benefits, right, of sharing academic knowledge, right, using media, all right, using the television, using social media, I don't know, right? So, that's going to be just your introduction. If that is clear, you stop over there and you go to this part. Here, what I was saying is that it's important to try to give more information about the person that you're showing, right? Sometimes it can be a very famous person, but it's important to establish what's the knowledge that she has, right? Who's Julia Stoll? Imagine that again, not everybody is going to know that person. So you can say, according to this person that is a professor at this university, or that is an expert, or that has this profession, right? So in that way, we can really feel comfortable with the evidence you're going to show because it's going to be trustworthy. All right. So adding more information because that's step number three. Step number four is the citation, the exact words that she's saying. That's correct. And after that, you are going to, because you say, right, newer streaming platforms have made shows more accessible to many customers. That is something that you have to add to one of your thoughts, I imagine, or that has to be part of that citation. Why? Because remember that after the citation, you need to paraphrase, and in that paraphrasing, you can start justifying also why then it is important, all right, to talk about the benefits or why these benefits are important, all right, to take into account. All right, so in general, you're going to, if you follow all those steps in detail, you're going to have this result, right? The first topic sentence that is just the introduction of your idea, generally speaking, without any justification necessarily. The extra information, the introduction of the person plus, right, some information about that person, the real information in quotation marks, if you have again you can use the last name and the year, then the paraphrasing with possible justification, because it says, right, unpack your evidence, explain your own words, what it means and how it helps to prove your point, but also you can connect this to why it was important that is in the last part. All right, so again, if you have any more questions or you need more details about that, let me know. But as you're accommodating the information, as you are making everything fit this structure, you perhaps are going to have doubts, please let me know. All right, let's work on that, please, Denise. I'm going to be here in case you need. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at what we got, and we're going to be identifying, all right, the elements that we got to write. And of course, it can be different, right? That template is just an idea, but it's interesting that all the steps can be clear so that we can replicate this for whenever we can or we have, all right, or we need in this case, or a very specific structure. Okay, so again, I'm going to be using the colors to identify the steps. So that's the first one, right? We don't have the second one, and we go directly to the third one, right? That is the introduction of the evidence. Uh-huh. And there you go. And perhaps, yes, I'm going to, yeah, yes, you have the, no, this is different, right? You are making it different over here. All right, I'm making the corrections over here, please. Danita, but I believe you have a copy over there. No, that's a different one, right? So I'm going to, just in case, because I'm seeing some elements that we can change. So here down below. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step here, we're going to say research expert. We need that to be a capital letter. Covering TV and video media. All right, this only that is the third step. That is the introduction of our evidence. Then we have that introduction, right? The U.S. television right market seems to have entered a time of transition rather than decline. All right, that means that this is the fourth step, right? Because that's what we call the insertion of the evidence. All right, it's weird, but it's considered a different step. Then here we have to analyze if this is going to be the real explanation in our own words, or we have to look for a different interpretation. All right, but let's read it. It says, because it provides an opportunity to reach each segment and keeps them up to date. All right, with subjects that are important or relevant to our context, newer streaming platforms have made shows more accessible to many consumers. Okay, in that way, yes, that can show that this is not declining, right? That this is actually increasing, right? This is going up because of the logic that this expert is showing. So yes, yes, it can be considered in that way. All right. Again, a piece of advantage here, or sorry, a piece of advice here is going to be to use a, a transitional word if it's possible for you to use it, right? To make it clear that this is going to be a paraphrasing or interpretation of that idea, you can always start with the elements that I showed you in the template, right? Like this means that because of this, comma, that, right? Or in other words, or the author or this expert, right? The expert or Julia or whatever title, right? She does doctor, this and that, right? Is telling us that, and so on and so forth, right? Again, why? Because that is going to make it clear that what you have here is not any extra piece of information, but it is just the paraphrasing or the complement of this information over here. All right. So again, it depends of course, on the situation, and it's up to you. But this means that for the expert, because it's an expert, right? The expert is telling us that, or trying to tell us that. It depends on how you want to portray that information. And of course, here you're going to continue with that lowercase letter. All right, again, that's just to make it sure what is the purpose of using this next part. As this is going to be, all right, apparently our next step, that is the first, second, third, and fourth, this actually is going to be either part of this because the step is connected, or part of this one. But let's see. This change brings with it, all right, brings up with it. Perhaps we're going to use a phrase over there. New opportunities, Over here, I believe that after bring, we're going to use directly because this is an indirect idea for account payment. But the main object receiving this, all right, or joining this object or this verb is going to be new opportunities. All right, so this change brings new opportunities with it, all right, or brings up new opportunities with it and new audiences, all right? They want to consume new content and stay tuned in, all right? So yes, even though this is separately because the purpose why you wrote that is differently, it is still part of the same step, all right? And finally, as a result, let's take a look at this. Going to be the conclusion of your first body paragraph. Professors have been appearing as guests on television programs to meet the needs of new audiences, who, all right, yes, are mainly interested in topics related to science and health. Okay, yes, here you have a conclusion again that is general related to this topic, all right, but remember, mm, that no, actually, yes, you're if you are supporting in a certain way your thesis statement, right? That has to be that it is a good idea, it is great that professors are interviewed right publicly to share their information. If it seems that this is supporting that, it is going to be good. All right, I was going to say something differently because here it's more of why these benefits are worth mentioning, right? And you can say, even if you want to answer that more directly, and this is an extra idea that you can apply or not, you can say, right, as a result, we can realize that it's really important to be aware of the benefits, right, of this type of practice. Because again, we can understand why it is really important to, I don't know, to make it possible, to support this idea, to be for this idea, and so on and so forth. That can be, of course, a more simple way to answer their last question, all right, more directly. But anything that goes related to your topic sentence and your thesis statement is going to be good, all right? So that should be it. It's not a lot, but I was just trying to identify the elements that we got to form our first body bar. Along with that, of course, we need to work then on a second one that we're not going to do now, but I would like to work at least briefly in our conclusion. All right. But to work our conclusion, I imagine that your second body paragraph is going to be about the disadvantages. All right. Or again, something negative. If that's the case, you have to take that into account because you need that information for the conclusion. But first, before going to the conclusion, we know the steps that we need, but I'm going to explain briefly just by showing the template. I don't know if you have any questions about the way in which we are organizing the body paragraph, Danita. Let me know, please, before going to the conclusion. To practice, right? Because we already read that.
Yes. Well, I just mentioned the idea of professors sharing knowledge just at the end of the body paragraph, and I don't know if that is good or it's something that I should have mentioned before. I just
Mm-hmm.
professors at the end, but my topic um is the main idea is about the professors, and I just only mention professors at the end of my body paragraph. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something valid or it's wrong.
Uh-huh. As I told you, it's possible to restate anything that reinforces your main idea, but remember, my recommendation is that at the end, instead of restating this, we have to say why this paragraph was important, all right, for your whole idea that is your thesis statement. So instead of that, you can directly reply that and reply to the idea to why. Why are you talking about the benefits? Right? How is this going to help your essay be more persuasive? Okay, so you can give a direct response to that. And again, the example that I was telling you, remember, is as a result, we can see that it's really important to be aware of the benefits, to be aware of the advantages, where you can make some changes, right? To be aware of the advantages of doing this practice, for example, all right, because we are now sure, right, that it in fact creates a big positive impact on people, for example. All right, but again, that's the idea. Or again, just because it creates awareness, all right, real awareness of that situation. But again, it's not incorrect if you restate something in a very similar way to what you did before to reinforce that idea. But if you can directly justify why this specific paragraph was important to this thesis statement, it is going to be even better. All right. I don't know if you have a question about that suggestion.
No.
All right. With that, then, please, Danita, the last thing we are going to do is work briefly on the conclusion. All right. For the conclusion, again, you only need three elements. You have to restate your thesis statement. And remember, right? I don't know if you were able to check that here. Remember that your thesis statement doesn't have to be a description, because if not, you are not convincing anyone, right, of anything. You are just describing the reality, and that's going to be a different type of thesis. All right. So there again, also, and remember, instead of recently, because in that case it feels more as part of the background. Recently can be something that you add in the here in the background information, but here remember that this is the conclusion of your introduction. So you can say therefore, as a result, thus, right? And this is again a description, right? Here you're giving a description. So instead of giving a description, you have to give a proposition. All right, and I'm repeating that because in the conclusion you have to use this again. Remember that your proposition or your idea has to be something that it is not really happening, or that it's happening but it's not receiving the importance that it should receive. All right, or it started or it finished because of a certain situation, but we should resume that. Okay, so that's the idea. Something happened to this, or something's happened with this. So we really need to put emphasis on its importance. So again, I'm always going to give those expressions as part of the illustration. I need to say, right? A result, as a result, right? It is really important, it's necessary, or I don't know, right? Or it's any word that you can use over there. It's essential, vital, that we take advantage, right? Or it's essential, vital to take advantage of this situation and make professors, right? Or make experts or people, right, that have knowledge on science and academics to share their knowledge, right, publicly. But again, you have many different ideas. The only observation, remember, about this last element, and that you have to be careful because you're going to restate that in the conclusion, is that it has to be stated in a different way, right? Not as a description, rather than something that you're proposing, something that you believe people has to pay attention to. All right? And following that logic, that's what you do here. So you say to finish, to conclude, in conclusion, right? We were able to see that it is in fact very important that people with a lot of knowledge share their information or share their knowledge, right, publicly. But of course, we can look for different words to restate that, because this is a restatement and reinforcing of the thesis state. Okay, so you're one more time saying, yes, that was in fact a good idea. Then in more plus, right, you have to give a summary of your topic sentences, right? Moreover, we were able to see, right, the very big or good benefits that this has, plus some disadvantages, but that are not significant to the overall, right, idea of applying this practice. So it's going to be a summary of the two topic sentences. The benefits, that is your first topic sentence, and the second one that you don't have, but again, I imagine that can be the disadvantages, or right, negative elements related to that, or perhaps you're not going to mention that and you can talk about a study. right? And the results of that study. So that's going to be part of your summary, right? And finally, again, you have only a reflection that is going to make us perhaps state another new thesis statement, okay? Or anything that you have in mind. Here you have some questions that you can try to respond to work on this reflection. But again, any thought or reflection at the end related to your thesis, but not directly going outwards or forwards, it is going to be good. All right. I wanted to reinforce that so that you have the time to work on these elements because again, the tips are just going to be reading some elements. I don't know if you have questions about this, so that please, for again 5 to 6 minutes, we are going to write just at least ideas for these 3 steps. Nice. Let me know please if you have any questions before having the time to do it.
No, I don't have
All right, so let's work on that, please, and we check what you got in the given time. All right, so in 1 to 2 minutes, we're going to check what we got. All right, doesn't matter if it's just a couple of steps. The thing is that you see if you have any difficulties, you let me know. I help, all right, with some ideas. And then after that, again, the corrections if it's possible. If not, I go to the last presentation or set of presentations that actually you can check because right I made you actually join the writing course so you can find all the material there, but I'm going to show it to you, right, so that you know how to use that presentation. Okay, so those were please 2 minutes, and let me know the difficulties that you have. So again, now in general, I'm just going to ask, all right, if what's difficult as you're working, all right, with this idea, you're working on the reflection already. Let me know if there's something, right, in which or with which I can help you to understand this as a step. And again, I'm going to give a look at this as you are telling me any doubts or anything that you want to comment. All right. So let me know, please, Denise. I'm going to be reading as you articulate.
Um, I'm not sure about the second step. Mm, yes. And but because I don't, or I just only expose uh quotations, so I use that. But in the case I have, like you mentioned, the benefits and negatives here in this step, I'm supposed to have two paragraphs or two paragraphs mention the benefits and the negatives elements, or, or
All right. No, this one actually is easier than you think. It is just the topic sentence, so you don't have to use even information from your citation. You don't have to mention the specific benefits. No, because that would be, well, saying something again that in detail that we don't need for the conclusion. For the conclusion, you only need to pay attention to this part. All right, and more to that specific part, this, because this is in fact your topic sentence, the benefits. All right, this is your topic sentence. So you only have to mention that you mentioned that. All right. As I told you, you can simply say, right, all in all, we were able to understand that we have some benefits as well as disadvantages that helped us, right, understand more about this practice or more about this issue or this problem or this activity, anything that you have over there. All right, but I'm saying that in just one complete, well, one sentence. That can be a compound sentence, that can be a complex sentence. It's up to you, Danitza. But again, the result is going to be very close to this template over here. All right, so remember, um, something like this, right? To finish, it was, or we were able to see that giving this space to experts, right, is a really good idea because it allows, right, them to inform, to educate people. All right, I'm trying to say that in different words, period. Right. Moreover, we were able to see the benefits and disadvantages of this activity, realizing, perhaps you can complement with a second idea, it's up to you, but realizing or noticing that in fact, right, the benefits are more important than the few disadvantages that we mentioned, for example, but that's extra and that's up to you. All right, it says here at least one per body paragraph. You can do that. All right, it's not going to be restricted to one, so you can have two sentences in total. But as I gave you my previous example, it can only be one example with two complete ideas, right? That is a compound or complex sentence. All right, but it doesn't, you don't need to mention the benefits. You don't need to mention the disadvantages or that in detail, because that's something you already did. You only need to mention the topic sentence in that general way, okay? Very general way. And one to two sentences, that's going to be top, but it's not even necessary. All right, and then you got the final point. Okay, but you mentioned that only that was the problem. All right, so that's my suggestion. Danitza, I don't know if you have any questions about that.
no, I don't have questions. Um,
Here, for example, right, you are developing this with the challenges and so on, but you can simply, again, generally mention that you talked about the benefits in one paragraph and the disadvantages in another paragraph, and what that was really important to understand why this activity is important, all right, or relevant, or the words that you can use. All right, and again, in the final point, you can state whatever you want as long as it's a reflection that starts, all right, from this essay. That is the point that you wanted to show. So that's it. If you have again more questions, please, you're going to let me know. But now, briefly, to finish this, and that's why I wanted to spend the time making you practice that, because look, I'm going to read very briefly. Actually, you're going to read with me, please, Danitza, these tips for writing skills, and mainly related to persuasive or argumentative essays. Okay, this is not going to apply for all types of essays. I would say actually that this only applies for persuasive essays. We're not going to read absolutely everything. In the step number one, we're not going to read this because they are explaining here passive voice and active voice, but we should use active voice in persuasive or argumentative essays. Why? Because as you did with your example, Danitza, with mentioning that expert, it's important to mention who is saying what, because that is going to give that weight to your evidence. Okay, sometimes we use passive voice when we don't want to mention the agent or it is not as important. But in persuasive essays, argumentative essays, the agents are very important. That's why active voice is going to be better than passive voice. All right. Using this here, you're going to read just small parts from this one, please, Anitza. And it's going to be that one until this point. All right. And that one. Let's read those two elements, please.
Okay. Safe flowery and abstract language for works of fiction. When writing a persuasive essay, you want to make sure you use very clear and direct language. Also avoid using vague language. You do not want to say something like, I am afraid of variety of things. But statements like this will leave the reader wondering what qualifies you as great.
Okay, so briefly, again, this point, thank you. It's just saying that don't make it complex, don't make it overcomplicated, right? The idea of the essay is that everything has to be clear. Sometimes we're going to use some words that need a definition, that's why we have the introduction. But in general, everything should be clear. We don't have to be metaphorical over here. We don't have to play with the words in an unnecessary way, right? The more clear, the less confusion, or if we can avoid any possible misinterpretation, the better. All right, again, here we can be, of course, creative in organizing our ideas, but again, it has to be as clear as possible. And finally, this is important. So we're going to avoid saying things like, it is important to do this because of many reasons, right? Many reasons is something that we have to avoid in this type of paragraph, right? Or this type of essay. Actually, in general, right? We should avoid that. But for this type of essay, well, we have more emphasis that we don't have to mention something as unclear as that. Okay? So you're going to say it's important to do this because of this and this, and we mention what, right? Or at least we have to give the idea that we're going to mention those afterwards in the essay. Okay, so again, literal, concrete language, not playing with words, not metaphor. Now, this is important, all right, because sometimes we have long ideas, but we have limits that we can take into account. So only that part, please, up to that period. Let's read it, please.
Word sentences are hard to follow. We recommend not including any sentences that are longer than 2 lines in your essays. As a rule of thumb, never say in 10 words what you can say in 5.
All right, there you go. Now again, that's important. I also can have a lot of problems with that but when I write essays, again, a very good thing to do is to use periods. More periods than we do in Spanish, because in Spanish the usage of comma is alright excessive. But in English we avoid that because we have that logic, right, to be concise. So give one idea and finish it as soon as you can. To have 2 lines, that's going to be the limit. Longer than 2 lines, right? If you keep adding parenthetical phrases or introductory phrases or final clarifications. It is not going to be necessary again because we want to avoid, right, at any cost, any type of confusion, any type of misinterpretation. All right, that's the only logic and reason, because we want the essay to be read perhaps only once or maximum twice to be clear. We don't want someone, right, to go to the dictionary to check for some words, to analyze that if that's a misinterpretation, what's happening, right? It has to be clear, very clear, and using just the words that you need is going to be one way. All right? That's again a recommendation mainly for writing. Then I'm going to summarize this because there's no main points that describes this as in the previous ones. And it's here. Just see when it is a good idea to change the correct place of the words. Remember the correct order, right? You know that. Subject, verb, right? The object, the direct object, the indirect object, and then you have place and you have time. From general to specific, all right? And if you're not following that, very likely you need to use commas, as in this case, right? In the fall, I will be applying to the University of Pennsylvania. Now, that is not bad. You have to analyze when that is good and when that is bad. When is it bad? When you have a long idea and the last element seems to be disconnected from your main verb and your main subject. All right. If you feel that that's happening or it creates a confusion to have this last detail at the end, you have to see if it is better to bring it at the beginning with a comma so that again we avoid any misinterpretation. And all the main information for you has to be close to your subject and your verb. Okay? After that or before that. In this case, this is the best option because as you're going to read later on in the presentation, this first option without commas can create more confusion or misinterpretations. All right, so also with that logic, you have to place the punctuation mark in the best, position according to what you believe is more important, all right, or what can avoid any possible, again, confusion. Now, this one, this is short. Let's read this, please, in the needs. Step 5.
Do not use abbreviations or contractions. This really is important in piece of professional writing. Contractions are only appropriate for conversational language and come off as lazy in formal writing. Military abbreviations are often unclear. Not everyone knows what this stands for.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Now, this is interesting and it's important, right? No contractions. We don't say don't, isn't, or am, or we are, and so on, right? We have to use all the words with no contractions. Also abbreviations, all right, like Mr., for example, or an abbreviation can be considered, it's not the same because abbreviation is not the same as acronym, but it includes that idea because the last one also is a type of acronym, right? Like USA, right? So let's avoid acronyms, abbreviations, and contractions. If you do that, again, the level of formality of your essay is going to be greater and greater. All right? Avoid repetition. Again, we don't need to read all of these to understand what they mean. Just let's try to use different words. And I believe you were doing that, right? If we mention one thing with important, in the next paragraph, we're not going to say important, we're going to say essential, vital, relevant, pivotal, and so on, right? Instead of give, we're going to say to distribute something, to hand out, right? If it's possible, of course, to apply to that situation. Get. The verbs that we have to avoid, all right, at any cost are, for example, get, all right? Get, if I'm not wrong, sometimes have, if you use it in a very general way. Instead of have, in some situations, you can use drink, eat, experience, right? Instead of get, you can use a lot of things like buy, obtain, right? Receive. So we have to always look for the best way to express that idea, not general verbs that can have many meanings. That's one of the main recommendations they give you in essays, right? Avoid those verbs that apply for any situation. That's always a bad idea. It is better if you use a more specific word that only works for that specific situation. And if that word has a Latin root, that's even going to be more formal. Okay, for example, if you have to choose between to start with, to begin, or first, or to commence, all right, to commence is going to be the best option. It is more formal and it's more valid in our writing exercise, all right, or in an essay in general. So avoiding repetition and in the way in which you're avoiding repetition, Anissa, you can choose better options, better words, and the ones again with letter root are the ones you can take into account. Now, this, please, again, we're just about to finish, is something again that is really important, and I would like you to read briefly because after this, we're done with the most important parts. So, all right. After that part, please, Danita, let's read that part of this slide.
Okay. Always try to put statements in positive form. Do not put them in negative or form. This will make your language seem stronger as opposed to non-committal and hesitating. If you use the word not, it must only be in cases of clear denial or ambiguous. Take a look at these examples. I do not usually arrive late. I'm usually on time. He did not think that going to a he did not think that going to a baseball game would be a good use of time. He thought that attending a baseball game would be a waste of time. In each case, the second sentence is stronger. In the second pair of sentences, the idea did not think is ambiguous, and it implies that he was not thinking about the baseball game at all. Oh, okay.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so briefly again, to be always clear, that's why we don't use passive voice. That's why we don't use negative sentences here. And also we don't use questions. All right, because we don't want to introduce any type of confusion, any type of doubt, any type of anything that again is not going to be interpreted as something clear that you know, that you believe, and you want to show. All right, so again, the resources, and that's actually something that we're not going to see now because again of the time and everything, but that is part of a second presentation that you also have in in that course that is called Some Vocabulary to Survive. If you open that presentation, I'm just going to show you. You're going to see a list of words that are used to replace a negative sentence. Okay, using prefixes that give a negative, all right, connotation to that word. And you have a list of the most important adjectives, nouns that you can use related to that. All right, so again, this is a way out to avoid using negative sentences because they are just telling you to not say I don't, right? Instead of saying I am not responsible, you can say I am irresponsible, right? That's what you can do. So you can use these words that have a negative connotation by themselves to avoid again um, breaking that rule. And here are some synonyms, important synonyms, all right, for very common words that you use in essays, and you can take them into account again in order to avoid repetition. All right, so this presentation is a compliment. All right, it is only a compliment. So take that into account. Again, I'm not going to share the details. Let me know, please, now if you have any questions. In step number 8, punctuation always inside the quotation marks, right? Never outside. That's it. And step number 1 is not something that you have to follow. It says don't exaggerate, right? It means you always have to keep things real, show real evidence, and say things in a way in which it doesn't seem to be exaggerated to persuade anybody. And that's it. All right, now we're finishing here. Let me know, please, any final questions that you got related to these presentations, related to Pearson, related to the course in general, to finish. Let me know, please.
Oh, yes. I love finish Pearson tests. Um, I have to test left. So, I was wondering if you could please check my test tomorrow. Because the coordinator, the girl, told me that after this course, she's going to talk with the professor who's going to give me the extra classes. Oh, yes. And she also lost her patience with me, so please, I will finish the test today, right now. Yes. And I was wondering if you could please share my scores with that girl tomorrow.
Okay, so until tomorrow, you say yes, yes. I mean, you had until Sunday, right? But I imagine that that was the case because they also wrote, they sent an email to send your scores as soon as I have them. So you're going to finish when exactly, Danita? Tomorrow?
Today.
Today?
Uh,
Okay, you also remember you have until tomorrow, right? So yes, it's up to you. So tomorrow, right? I'm also going to send them everything tomorrow. No worries. As soon as I can check your scores and everything. Usually I only have time at nights. So tomorrow it doesn't matter if you finish right in the morning or I don't know. I'm just going to be able to check at night, and at that time I'm going to share that with with management or the person that was in contact with you. I imagine it's the same because they also sent an email to me. All right. Okay, good. So that's it. It means that again you have all the elements over there for you to keep practicing. I know these last days, all right, it has been even more difficult because of many different right elements that you told me, but it's always up to you. You have everything over there to keep practicing. Keep doing it. All right, keep doing it. Again, it's just now working on those extra classes that I believe they told you that you need, then going to the prep course. But that's it with me. It means I'm going to share, please, the poll. Today we have two: the daily one that you can see right now, and the last one. All right, the general evaluation. Okay, that's one, and this is the last one. Okay, there you go. Now that's it again. It was great working with you, Anita. I hope you can, finish very well with your projects, that everything goes well. I hope also that we can be in touch. All right, so that's going to be it. I hope again that we can still have some conversations, and I wish you the best for what's left for you in the program. I'm sure you're going to do it great. All right.
Thank you. I really enjoyed spending time with you, Philip. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I did as well, Denise. It was really great. So, again, I hope that this is not going to be right the last time we're going to be in contact. Remember that if you want to practice with me, or if you have any questions about perhaps something related to the language or something I can help you with, you have my contact. All right?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
No, you're welcome. Have a good night. Enjoy, well, the rest of the week, and we'll be in touch. All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.